So when we're on the fringe, it's like saying, what do we need to get through? The kind of therapy we do with fatigue is how do we get our energy back?
Yeah.
We're not going to dive deep, but we're going to say, how do we get our energy back so that we have a moment to catch our breath, and then maybe later we can dive deep.
And so dissociating in a productive way versus an unproductive way, dissociating into our phones. I mean, I do it at times, but it's like scrolling through TikTok is not actually cooling down my hot brain. Meditating, jumping on my trampoline, actually listening to a very thought-provoking podcast and walking on the treadmill, those are more beneficial. And yeah, I notice if I'm listening to podcasts, I'm popping out all the time because my brain is hot.
Yeah.
I'm getting something and I'm slowing myself down.
Yeah.
Even though physical activity doesn't seem appealing when we're so stressed, it's helpful.
It is. And even as we say that, like when you go into the research, it's a particular kind of physical activity. It's not working out really hard and blowing out all your records. It's getting up and moving. There's some good research that's coming up for first responders, police in particular, where they find out that after a shift where your mind's been hot all shift long, because you never know what's coming next, that if you go straight home and crash when you get home, crash on the couch, your chance for getting diabetes within 5 years of joining the force goes through the roof. And the thing that makes the difference that they're finding is if after your shift, you go for a 20-minute walk. It doesn't even have to be a very fast walk, but just a 20-minute walk. That's not blowing out your records at the gym, but it's moving. And if you do that, your risk of type 2 diabetes goes way down.
And I mean, that's like, even if we parked 20 minutes away from our office, so then it's like, okay, that helps me to get my 20 minutes in. And I've spoken with individuals who have PTSD and they just always walk to and from work.
Yeah.
And so once we start to see the value of certain things and how they're impacting our chemical equation, it's like, that's it, people. It's like, if I know personally cardio, I believe it, Daniel Amen says cardio cools down a hot brain, one of the fastest ways. Totally. And for me, if I miss my cardio, I'm more irritable. I'm more likely to indulge in bad food.
I'm with you.
I'm more standoffish with my children and my husband. I can see it. And then that night when I'm like, oh, why did I have a bad day? Or the next morning, it's like, yeah, I need to have some space for me.
Totally.
Especially during this time of compassion fatigue. And I'm sure with you too, Tony, it's like, what are the boundaries and the limits I need?
Totally. I think that's really the responsible conversation to have is, okay, yes, we're fatigued. So how do we change our life to accommodate the fatigue? How do we bring in these little practices that take off 5 to 10% of our stress? How do we recognize when our mind's hot that we move into something that's at least somewhat restorative? A walk.
Right.
If you have somebody, whether it's a friend, a family member, a partner, that can give you a hug and a good tight hug for just 15 seconds.
Yeah.
What that does for your nervous system, it's like one of the most comprehensive things. Just somebody that can just give you that kind of contact, 10, 15 seconds. That'll cool down a really hot brain pretty darn quick as well.
It's a start, right?
It's a start.
So I think it's that research is 30 seconds unless they've changed it, but 10, 15 is a start. But if you're hugging and breathing, 6-second kiss with your significant other, grab your baby, hold on to your child, like it's these things that it makes sense. So co-regulating, touch, and self-regulating, and all these different pieces of like, okay, there is this need to know that the crisis, COVID fatigue, and the compassion fatigue, we're not going to feel like we can escape it right now.
Right.
We don't get to go on vacation from our caregiving role.
Right.
Because we're still in this crisis.
Totally. We're in an abnormal world, and our response is going to look different than normal.
Yes. Yes.
So if we try to act normal in an abnormal world, that's where we run into real difficulties.
Yeah. And so
Unnecessary difficulties.
Unnecessary difficulties, and it's like you can't go around it, you can't go out over it. Guess I have to go through it. You know, that old sort of child thing from camp where we're going through it. It's okay to be upset with leadership. It's okay to have biases or be challenged on our own stance or white privilege or whatever privilege a person may have, because we're gonna be. It's uncomfortable, but we're all just people like everybody else. And actually, everybody's just trying to survive right now.
Oh gosh, yeah. Oh, 100%.
And so for our survival in regards to compassion fatigue in particular is, if you are a person alive in this situation and you don't realize you have compassion fatigue, that might be a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Because we should be fatiguing. We should be fatiguing. We're burning out about feeling like, how am I responsible? How am I not responsible for other people?
Right.
So channel in, self-regulate, you know, that can be key, that slowing down with our own self so that we can slow down with our people, so that we can be more available in our life role.
Yeah. And I mean, this is really an important place for, depending what your personal life, your personal network looks like, this is an important place for therapy. It's not going to look like digging into the deep stuff, but it's going to look like saying, hey, you're fatigued. Mm-hmm. How do we help you cope better?
Yeah.
We're not going to get rid of your coping strategies. You're still 100% allowed to dissociate. That's sometimes one of your most powerful survival mechanisms. But at the very least, we want to give you more tools so that when dissociation is your best fit, dissociate. If you need something else, at least you've got a different tool then too. That's what therapy is for as well.
Yeah, like back in my day, many years ago on YTV, they'd have this like Inspector Gadget cartoon, and he had his cloak would open, and there'd be all his different things. And it's sort of like, we need to know all of the tools in our toolbox right now of how to cope and strategize. And we need to have some balance, you know, and moderation. So when we notice I'm only using one tool, I'm dissociating way too much, or I'm fighting way too much, or I'm people pleasing way too much, or freezing. Then
if all I'm doing is TikTok and TV, if that's my only way I know how to care for myself, I'm probably going to need more tools than that. Yeah.
And if I haven't left the city in 18 months, you know, there's safe ways to go on a drive out of the city and come back. Like, there's these things that it's like, okay, how am I doing?
Time in nature. Our city here actually is one of the best in North America for natural parks. Mm-hmm. But when you're surrounded by a lot of really challenging man-made, man-oriented, man-related issues, going into nature that isn't made by man is really helpful to kind of just make a break, breathe, recenter, re-navigate, and then come back.
You see, so if you park your car, you walk for 8 minutes to a spot, lay down a blanket, set your timer for 10 minutes, and just lay and breathe and watch the clouds.
Yep.
And then you can be done. You could be with somebody else and then you start hugging them for a little bit if you want to add next level. Yep. Then you like roll everything up, walk back to the car. That's a way to that's another sort of we can be creative and strategic.
Totally. Yeah. And it doesn't need to be elaborate, because it needs to be available and achievable.
Measurable and manageable. Yeah. Awesome, Tony. There's a lot in this one. You know, it's important, and it's a messy experience that we're all in.
100%.
And I think that's the thing with Tony and I. Tony and I like to think we don't always agree, which I don't know if people would realize that, because we do well speaking with each other. Yeah. But that's something because we're mindful of ourselves and we're mindful of each other, which fits with all of this compassion fatigue stuff.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. Hopefully there's some food for thought here.
Totally.